What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel Hand Waving. Your friend Naruto Addict 2.0 is here again with a brand new Naruto fanfic that's going to change everything. A story where Naruto is betrayed and banished. But destiny has bigger plans for him. From exile to emperor, this is the journey of power, strategy, and love. Today's fanfic is titled, Which is What If Naruto's Parents Minato and Kushina Came Back to Life Part 3. If you enjoy intense Naruto stories and epic world building, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now sit back, relax, and let the legend begin. In a swirl of leaves, Inu appeared in a clearing meant only for Anbu, an approved guest. Inu had figured he would be needing this field for a while, and so he had already gotten approval from the Hokage earlier this morning and had shown the approval document to the Anbu commander Doragon, dragon in Japanese. They would have access to this field until further notice, but Inu was to check the field before bring Naruto to it, that way Naruto would have a safe environment to learn and have fun in. This field wasn't often used because it was more open than the other fields. Most Anbu only used it when they were testing a new recruit or just doing light basic workouts, like for recovery and such, otherwise they were too paranoid to be out in the open so much and preferred the smaller, more secluded fields for the Anbu. Inu placed the giggling Naruto down and brought a scroll out. He had gone and bought a set of blunted training kuni for Naruto with a pouch as well. Inu had spoken with Jiraiya, Tsunade, Minato and Kushina about what was going on and what he would be showing Naruto for a while until everyone could come and make time to teach him. Minato believed that kuni training would be great for a start to keep Naruto safe, if not with anyone. Even blunted kuni could cause some harm or at least scare a civilian off. Inu brought up the kitten Naruto had found during the last visit, and described the interaction that they had missed while doing either physical rehabilitation or resting and unable to watch all day. After a bit of answer and question session, they spoke of the pros and cons of keeping the animal. After hearing the story of Naruto's dedication to a small critter and seeing the similarities of mistreatment between the two, Minato was a bit reluctant, but Kushina was excited about it. Money was arranged for payment of the care and fixing of said animal, so it would be ready to go when everything happened. Inu felt that he should start stepping up. He felt guilty for not helping more, but his hands were tied, so he suggested kuni training he could do to bond with Naruto. Until now, since he has been interacting with Naruto as Inu and not Kakashi, simply because of the council and their ruling and not wanting anyone getting too much power over the Kyuubi. Since Kakashi has a Sharingan eye and it was believed someone with the eye may have been controlling the Kyuubi, since there was reports of seeing an oddness with its eyes. Thus, the mistrust between the villagers and the Uchiha ever since it was brought into light, and in turn him a bit though, because it was a known fact that he wasn't as strong as an Uchiha in sight, Uchiha claim, not many looked at him. It was time now to make up for it now, and Minato said not to worry about the council. Him and Sandaime-sama were going to make sure the council didn't know about this time with Naruto, because they weren't in the know of who Inu was in Anbu. There was a very strong genjutsu seal in the mask that worked as long as the mask was on, changing hair color to either black or brown along with cut style to anyone looking at them. Inu kneeled in front of Naruto and unrolled the scroll. Little hands came down and pushed at the paper and patted it a few times. Inu looked up and almost laughed. There was Naruto looking at the paper, trying to figure out how to not only activate his chakra for the first time. Since the last time Naruto was in class, they covered only the theory of unlocking chakra, and trying to get the item out of the seal. Naruto, it would be best if I got it out until you unlock and can control your chakra before you try stuff with seals, otherwise you risk damaging the item or having it come explosively out at you along with potentially injuring yourself, said Inu as he gently picked up Naruto's hands and moving them back out of the way. Naruto flopped down on his bottom and crossed his arms and legs while squinting his eyes at what Inu was doing. When Inu pushed chakra through to the seal, Naruto leaned in like he watching, almost like he wanted to see the chakra, but that was ridiculous unless you had a Keki Genkai that made your chakra visible like that, like Kushina's chains or some dojutsu were able to. You couldn't see chakra, but you could feel chakra as a sensor, which was the other way to see it, in a way, like Minato sensei could. Why so little? When Jiraiya showed me this morning with a large rock during our run, he used a lot more to seal and unseal it. Asked Naruto. This made Inu blink. Was Naruto a chakra sensor like Sensei? Inu asked a few questions trying to find out, and after talking to Naruto for a few minutes he was able to confirm that yes, Naruto was in fact a low-level sensor, one just starting to either notice or understand what he was feeling. Well, congratulations Naruto, you're a budding chakra sensor in the making. The different levels of small lights or tingling you see or feel are different levels of chakra use, like you figured out. When you get better you will be able to look at someone and gauge the level of chakra the person has in general, which can help you identify an intruder posing as a civilian or tell the level of someone in jutsu use. Inu told Naruto, to which the kid started cheering about how awesome he was and that he was a step closer to being Hokage. Inu let Naruto have his moment back before bring him back to what was unsealed. The pouch was tossed to the kid. When he turned around to see what Inu wanted, Naruto caught it, then opened the pouch smiling. I guess we're working on kuni throwing today, huh? Naruto said, closing the pouch and strapping it to his leg, with Inu's help, then looked a bit unsure about some things, so Inu asked if everything was alright. But the blonde lady told me to not work out much because of my weight, and I was kind of wondering if maybe we could go see the kitten today. I didn't get the chance yesterday because I ran into Jiraiya and we lost track of time, so I couldn't go see him before I fell asleep. Naruto tilted his head and squinted his eyes. By the way, who was that strange woman that barged into my house this morning? Not that I'm complaining, she made me food and stuff, but then she hugged me and bought stuff for me with the Jiraiya guy. Naruto said, blushing at the thought of the hug and being pressed into the soft oversized chest this morning. He always wondered if they felt soft or like jelly. It was a mixer of both. It was nice if not a bit odd, but since Naruto could only remember ever being hugged by Gigi, then he really couldn't compare that because Gigi was a boy like him and she was a girl, though the girls in his class didn't have. He wondered why. Maybe they ordered them. Another question for him to have Gigi add to the list, he guessed. He couldn't wait until the person who was Goanna answered these questions came, then maybe he would finally figure things out. Ah, well, just to make sure we are talking about the same person, I need more to go on then. Blonde lady, what else did she look like? Inu was sure it was Tsunade, but he wanted to make sure it wasn't a Yamanaka that Minato wanted to have Naruto go to for any counseling when he wasn't sure about talking to his family or friends. Much was about to change for the boy, and Minato wanted to make sure he had someone reliable to talk to. Though Inu wasn't sure which Yamanaka was Goanna be Naruto's counselor, the person may have already been found and sent over this morning by the Hokage, though Inu wasn't sure if he should have been told already or not. Tsunade had already told him about the medical restrictions on Naruto and that the food that was Goanna be served from now on would have a mild sedative in it to keep Naruto moderately tired and less likely to want to run around as much. Jiraiya mentioned that Naruto, while pretty fast, he had a bit of a hard time not balancing correctly or compensating well for a fast pace, and that slowed him a bit. Along with more than once seeming to have tripped himself up when his feet almost crossed each other, Tsunade said it was more than likely the issues found around the ankle and knee areas causing that problem. Naruto thought for a moment, then bent down to draw in the dirt. Inu gave him a few minutes to draw. When Naruto pulled back, Inu had to stop a laugh from coming out loud. It was a picture of a woman, all right. 3 large circles, 1 for the head and 2 for under the head, he guessed. The head had 2 squiggles looking like tails on either side of the head and what looked like a square frying pan in her hand or a large paddle. There was a box with triangles in it, teeth, and flames for eyes. Ah, an angry lady Tsunade. What did Lord Jiraiya do this time? Asked Inu. To which Naruto explained it wasn't Jiraiya but him who caused her to get mad by accident. Inu couldn't wait to tell this to Minato and Kushina. They would laugh. And then kill the landlord. Oh boy, more for the list of targets to add. Well, that blonde lady is Lady Senju Tsunade, the granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage Senju Hashirama. She is the top medical ninja in both field medic and hospital medic. She and Lord Jiraiya are teammates from their time as Genin. The Sandaime Hokage took them as Genin. Inu hopped that Naruto didn't ask about their third teammate. It was a touch subject. He did a sleight of hand and snapped a pic of the drawing he would show Minato and Kushina but would never show it to Tsunade. That was a death sentence if he ever saw one. Inu and Naruto talked a bit more about Tsunade and Naruto asked if Jiraiya was related to any famous ninja, which was a no to Inu's knowledge, but thought it was so awesome that a fellow orphan was a powerful ninja and respected by everyone. Finally, they got down to practice after Inu said he had spoken to Tsunade and was approved for the current activity, and after 1 hour of practice Naruto was free until Jiraiya was able to come and start some reading lessons with him. Inu said they would go see the kitten and Inu would have a message sent to Jiraiya so he knew where to find Naruto when he was ready for him. At first Naruto's aim was horrible, well, atrocious was a better term. They missed by miles, even somehow nearly hitting Inu. After watching Naruto and talking to him, Inu found the problem being everything. No one showed him how to hold the kuni nor throw it with a snap of the wrist, not arm, pivot the waist, position his feet. In the day his class was shown, Naruto was conveniently put in the corner and ordered not to turn around or leave, and it was enforced heavily. After showing Naruto the proper grip and motions of snapping one's wrist and getting it done without damaging his wrist, they went through the different motions a few times before returning to aiming for a specific target. Inu explained for now they would do standing still targets until Naruto was approved for normal workouts again. Though they did move up to learning 2 kuni at once and were working on 3 at once when Inu called the training session to an end. Even though most of the aim for 1 kuni was off a bit, Inu wanted to give him a reason to get better and get a feel for multiple kuni differences in throwing. Naruto cheered and went to return the kuni and pouch to Inu when he was told that they were his from now on and that later before bed Inu would show him how to care for his new weapons correctly. Inu also mentioned that Naruto was to use these instead of the ones at school, not mentioning the found unbalanced kuni in his teacher's desk, and that only approved people like his Jiji, Inu himself, Jiraiya and Tsunade were allowed to touch his personal kuni. Naruto cheered again, dancing around Inu and giving leaping hugs here and there before settling when Inu reminded him about Tsunade's order. They made sure the training field was cleaned up before leaving in another sunshine by Inu. Inu didn't want Naruto to know the field location since normally non-ninja were not allowed on the fields. They reappeared in front of the clan gates and Naruto went running to the same building as before, then knocked at the door. One of the few manners he learned after an incident with Jiji, one where Naruto had gone to visit Jiji at his home. On one of the few occasions Jiji wasn't in the office. Needless to say, Jiji was in his underwear, smoking his pipe, spread out on the couch doing something while reading a book. Naruto couldn't see what his Jiji was doing because the old man had jumped and covered himself with a pillow. Yep, the lecture had stuck and now he waited for an invite with the exception of Jiji's office since Jiji said personal space, not workplaces. Though Naruto knew this was a vet's office, he also saw it was a house and Inu knocked last time, so it was better safe than sorry. Once again 3 dogs charged the door barking. Naruto backed up just in time for the 3 dogs to barrel through the door and knock it off its hinges. Naruto went to dash behind Inu when the 3 tackled him from behind before he could reach Inu. He squawked in a bit of fearful manner, but Inu just stood there. Then next thing Naruto knew, wet tongues were everywhere, in his ears, on his cheeks, even managing his mouth, which made him spit and laugh while trying to fend off the tongue attack. Inu just stood back and watched. He knew that Tsume had Kuromaru, Tsume's partner, talk to the dogs of the area about Naruto. They made sure Naruto would feel safe to come here and that any dog or Inuzuka that couldn't behave was told to stay away from him. That's what Inu and Tsume talked about their last visit while Naruto was busy. Naruto was finally saved by Hana when she pulled her 3 partners off the poor child. Naruto laughed and got up, then patted himself down, frowning at the state of his new clothes. He hopped Jiraiya and the Tsunade lady didn't get mad at him and take them all back. They were comfortable and fit nicely. He started really trying to get the dirt out of his new clothes, even more trying to make the large splotches of dirt off his clothes. Inu noticed his problem and went to calm Naruto down. After noticing the child's stress, it took a bit but it worked. At this point, Hana stepped up and apologized to Naruto for the trouble and offered to clean them while he could use a pair of her brother's clothes while his were washed. Naruto hesitated, but Inu agreed for him and took Naruto's hand and led him inside behind Hana. Hana led them to Kiba's room and tossed Naruto a pair of pants to him and walked out of the room with Inu for him to change. Naruto changed and brought out his dirty clothes folded sloppily since he never had to fold clothes before, but these were special and he already promised he'd take care of the stuff he was given, so he tried being neat with them. Maybe he'd ask Tsunade or Jiraiya to show him how to fold them right so he could keep his promise. Hana took the clothes and Inu took his hand again. They went their separate ways to do different things. Naruto walked with Inu to the vet's back area with the cages of recovering animals and saw Sume already there checking one of the cages, grumbling to herself. "Hello Sume-sama." Naruto wished to see the kitten again, if that would be okay. Sume looked up from the cage, not even startled at their sudden intrusion. She knew they were here after Hana ran out to grab her dogs off the kid. Though when she looked up she sharply inhaled when she saw Naruto standing there with no shirt holding Inu's hand. It wasn't his state of dress but how thin he was that made her react. She played it smooth though and smiled at the boy, while nodding, then moving to another cage to get the requested kitten that was no longer needing an IV drip. She brought him out on a soft blanket he was laying on and motioned Naruto to follow her. The kitten cried out at being moved, more startled than in pain. He was drugged up and a bit off balance at the moment, making him panic a bit easier. The small cast on him didn't do anything for his balance either. She guided them to a small room meant for adopter and adoptee to bond before adoption to make sure they would be a good fit for each other. She motioned for Naruto to sit, and once he did she handed the kitten to him on the blanket, making sure he knew what to do and what not to do. She went back out the door that only had a bottom half and no top so anyone could look and reach in but not let the animal out. Inu was just outside the door waiting for her. She looked at the Anbu and hoped he had an answer for the kitten's fate and little boy's hope for it. Inu withdrew a scroll out of his pouch and handed it to her. "They will take the kitten but request you to have him fixed and up to date on shots. Within the scroll is money for the care of the animal, which they request stay with you for about 2 months, and I will be sent with further instructions on what to do with him before time is up. They would like Naruto to name him and be allowed to visit him whenever he likes. They do this for Naruto's benefit with the 2 months wait because they are awaiting their home to be completed. You may have noticed or heard by now of the large home being built by the Hyuga clan. They said it is there they will be moving to and are allowing you to know some stuff about them while requesting silence on this matter." Inu said with a shallow bow, indicating to Sume that whoever this was, they were very important people. Sume opened the scroll and read the amount given and sputtered, not even unsealing the amount. "This is way too much for simple cat care even for the 2 months he will be staying here. I can't accept all this," Sume said, rolling up the scroll and trying to hand it back to him, but Inu shook his head. "They said to use the rest as a donation for animal care of other unfortunate animals or elders who cannot afford their animals' care. They will not take no as an answer," Inu said, finally standing up. They turned their attention back to Naruto for a moment after hearing light mumbling coming from the room. They peered in and saw Naruto laying by the blanket he had lain on the floor talking to the kitten about his day yesterday, and from the sounds of it would be going until when they met back up. Sume smiles watching Naruto stroke the kitten's head or scratch his ears as he spoke to the animal, which was purring. Inu took another picture, but Sume noticed though he wasn't trying to be sneaky about it. She stepped up to the door, called out with the news. "Hey kid." Inu came through for the kitten and found him a home. "But they wish for you to name him and see him when you can or want. They will collect him in about 2 months from now, but he will be here and will need a good friend to keep him company. So, what do you want to name him? Any ideas?" asked Sume, leaning on the door looking down. Naruto shook his head no, so Sume went back into the waiting room to the book section for people to read while waiting to be called in. There was a baby name book there for anyone wanting to find a new name for their new animal friend. She brought it back to Naruto only to see him frown at the big book. She explained what it was and what it was for. He only frowned more. That's when Inu stepped in and told her while telling Naruto not to be ashamed or embarrassed about only now learning how to read. She thumbed through it for a moment intending to help the kid. You know a meaning you would like for his name, for example it says here your name means maelstrom, a powerful whirlpool in a sea or river, or fish cake, a ramen topping. Said Sum as an example coming in to sit beside Naruto and showing him where it was in the book. Naruto thought for a few minutes, this kitten deserved a good name and a home after almost dying because of some stupid bullies because of a superstition. But what would be a fitting name for one who deserves everything for its innocence? Is there a name for treasure or something like that? He deserves something that shows that he is a treasure. Said Naruto. He waited for a bit as Sum looked through the book for a while. Well, bad news and good news. I found a few treasures but they are female names, but I found one you might like, Tozen, meaning deserving one. How does that sound? Sum asked, showing Naruto to look at it while he gently ran a figure over the tiny head of the kitten who was still purring. Sum softly said the name after Naruto sounded it out. It seemed to fit the kitten who really did deserve all the good things in life. He beamed a smile at Sum and nodded. You hear that? Tozen is your new name now, kitten. Cheered Naruto, who laid back down to be face level with the kitten now named Tozen. Sum got up with a smile on her face and went to the bench nearby, placing the book on it. She then left, saying she would be back later. It was half an hour later she returned to a sleeping Naruto with the kitten by his head and Inu still standing guard at the door. He nodded to her, noticing she had a basket bed and some items in it for the cat. He opened the door for her, letting her in the room. Sum walked in and set the basket down, then pulled out a blanket human-sized, originally folded in the basket, and covered Naruto with it. She then removed the rest of the items and placed the kitten inside it on the soft fleecy bed with its original blanket. Then placed the items next to Tozen's new bed and placed the items near it while picking up the small needle and giving Tozen his pain reliever. She had set up a date for his neutering in 3 weeks. By then he should be well enough not to have any problems. She left after leaving Naruto a small note, knowing Inu would help him, explaining that the items are for him and Tozen, a few toys and treats along with a few other items including the basket. Naruto woke after an hour when he heard cussing from the other room and it sounded like the Sum lady. Naruto got up and saw Tozen in the basket that was near him and a blanket covering him along with more items. He saw a folded piece of paper hanging off the side of the basket with what he recognized as his name on it. He picked it up and started trying to read out loud, knowing Inu would hear him and come help if it seemed he was having trouble. Inu was standing against the wall still watching Naruto and near enough to see the note over his shoulder. Key notes. Naruto speak, Inu speak. Dear Naruto, these items are for Tozen, paid for by the owners for his and your use while he is here. In the small black box contains a call or collar for Tozen with his name on it. Go ahead and put it on him. Some cat treats that you can give him when he is better, and I say it is okay, and toys for when he is able to move around. In 3 weeks he will be neutered. Inuzuka, vet's office. Inuzuka, Tism, Sum. Read Naruto slowly while sounding out the words as he read, allowing time for Inu to correct him as needed. Naruto looked over the note again and then turned to Inu. What's neutered? Naruto asked, making Inu twitch a moment. Inu came and sat near Naruto, trying to think of a safe way to explain what would happen to the poor cat in the near future. Well, Naruto, it's something that people do to an animal in order to keep them from overpopulating an area. It's healthy and safe. Inu was trying to figure out a way to say it nice but just decided to be blunt. They remove the male cat's balls in order to make sure they can't make more cats. Naruto flinched and cupped his privates protectively, looking at Inu in horror and paling. He was speechless. Inu wondered if maybe he should have gotten Sum to explain. Naruto looked ready to grab the poor sleeping kitten and bolt. Inu's instincts kicked in and he reached for something coming at his head hard. It still had enough force to make his hand hit the back of his head. It was a closed bottle of disinfectant. Inu turned and saw an angry Sum. Inu flinched knowing he was in trouble and he prayed that she would forget about this incident before she meets Kushina or Minato and told them about this, that is if they weren't already watching, otherwise he would be dead meat when he got back to report to them. Inu got up and out of the matron's way as she came in and over to Naruto. He looked at her as she sat, then started fixing the damage, while still not explaining breeding, that Inu had done by explaining that it was for the best and that female animals got similar treatment for the same reasons. It almost broke her heart when the boy started crying, saying he didn't want Tozen's chance for a cat family of his own to be taken away, to which Tsume told Naruto that Tozen and his new adoption family were gonna be the cat's new family. After that didn't work, she took him to the kennels where all the different animals were kept and showed him the sadness of the overpopulated and unwanted pets' life had until they found a home, and even went so far as to explain that some animals, even healthy ones, would eventually be put down due to them being unwanted and too many to care for. While this made Naruto upset, he finally understood that it was for the best that little Tozen not have his own cat family but just the adoptive human one. They went back to the small room, to which Naruto softly pet Tozen and then picked up the small black box by the bed. Opening the box, he saw inside was a simple brown leather collar that looked strong yet soft. It had a small gray metal plate that said, Tozen Uzumaki, on it in black with orangish stitching on the edging of the tie-downs, and a small bell under the plate. On the back to hide the clasp was a white bow, and the edging also had orange on the ribbon bow. Naruto smiled and gently lifted the cat's head. After unclasping the collar, he slid it under and then around the kitten's neck, then reclasped the collar. Tozen purred louder as Naruto alternated scratching behind his ears and chin. Naruto smiled softly at the kitten. Tsume-san, you sounded upset a few minutes ago, is something wrong? Asked Naruto, looking at the wild-looking woman. She sighed and shook her head. It's nothing, pup, just my son Kiba avoiding his chores again. He was supposed to come home after school today and it's been 2 hours since then. When my pup comes home he'll be doing chores all night so I can get this inventory done and order us restock. Says Tsume, looking out of the room. I'd do it, but I have clan matters and vet duties to do and 3 minor surgeries to do, along with prep for a council meeting tomorrow. If Kiba doesn't get here soon then I'm gonna have to do that too, so we don't want to run out of things for the clinic or store. It sounded like she was overloaded and really did need a hand getting things done. From what Inu had told Naruto at one point after the first visit, the Inuzukas make most of the food and treats, so Naruto knew that took time, and having the count done on time would make sure that they weren't rushed in making the items needed. I can help, I'm waiting for Jiraiya anyway, and Tozen can go sleep some more while I help out. Offered Naruto, standing up with a smile on his face. He turned and gently picked the basket up that held Tozen and handed him to Tsume so she could put him back in his kennel. You don't have to do that. Maybe if you might know where Kiba is, then either you or one of my pack can retrieve him and you can enjoy more time with Tozen here. Tsume said, trying to hand the basket back. I might know where he is. The other kids were talking about doing the trail race to see who is the fastest last week. They do that every once in a while. It's on the trail heading up the hill behind the academy. We race for candy. But if you send a pack to him, I can start it and then we can get it done together when he shows. Said Naruto, not taking the basket while he struck a thinking pose, one hand under his chin, the other hand supporting the one holding his chin, and eyes shut like a squinty fox. Tsume knew of where the trail was from Kiba bragging about his wins, though he never mentioned or shown his reward for winning to her before, something that will be addressed when he gets home. After a few minutes of Naruto insisting that he help Tsume with the inventory, Inu stepped in and said it would be good practice for Naruto's reading and figuring out the difference between products. Tsume conceded to them since she really had to get moving and send someone after her wayward son, as she led them to the back of the vet's office. She grabbed a clipboard and handed it to Naruto and walked to Tozen's cage and placed him in the basket inside and locked the door, then continued to the back with the built-on storage room. She went to the back and opened the door with a key, and Naruto noticed a pulse of chakra and asked about it. Tsume raised an eyebrow at this and Inu informed her that it appeared that Naruto was a budding sensor, to which she smiled and congratulated Naruto, while pulling the door open. She briefly explained it was a security measure because of the potential mediation thieves and handed him a clipboard she pulled off the wall that was hanging from a hook. Okay, pup. The clipboard I gave you has a list of all the products in this room. There are some medical items in the refrigerators and some other temperature-sensitive things in there as well. Please be careful, and if anything is too heavy, have Inu help you out until Kiba gets here. With that, Sum nodded to Inu and left it to them. Inu had sent a letter to Jiraiya, while Sum explained things to Naruto about the situation and told him they can caught him at a later time if he wanted to wait before getting Naruto. Naruto took a quick look around and saw that the place was messy and disorganized, so he put the clipboard down and started moving items around to be in same group, taking food bags and putting them by brand and then flavor. Once he had the shelf room, he started placing the grouped up items that were lined up against the wall and by Inu's suggestion alphabetically, which was a bit more of a lesson for Naruto since he only has been memorizing words with Jiraiya. They made a game of it. Once Naruto learned the alphabet correctly, once it was repeated a few times by Inu, so they were ordered correctly. The items were pulled off, grouped by medical care, toys, and type of animal that used it, those kind of things, and then once a large spot was clear, Naruto would wipe the shelf down and move everything back in the order they were cleaned up in. An hour went by before Kiba was tossed into the room with a shout of anger that Naruto finally stopped for a moment. Kiba was grumbling to himself as he wiped off his pants and made a rude gesture to whoever was at the door. Whoever it was must have had their back to him because nothing was said about this rudeness. Man, one day I'll mop the floor with that jerk and it'll be me dragging him to clean the dog pens. Size might as well do the counts before mom skins me alive. Kiba turned around and then jumped back in shock, before growling and cracking his knuckles. Naruto, what are you doing here? Are you trying to steal from us or something? Kiba stomped forward and was about to grab Naruto by his shoulder when Inu stepped in front of him out of nowhere. He had not noticed Inu. Kiba-san, if you were here when you were supposed to be, you would know that Naruto offered to help Sum-sama after she needed the work done. Please keep your hands to yourself, said Inu with a slight edge to it, not approving of Kiba wanting to rough up his charge without getting an answer first. Right before Kiba could respond, he was hit upside the head from behind. He turned while holding his head and complaining. Sum stood behind him and was holding Naruto's laundered clothes in the opposite hand than the one she had used to hit Kiba upside his head. Like Inu-san said, you would know what was going on if you were here to do what I told you to do before you left for school this morning. Sum turned to Naruto with a smile. Here, pup, go down the hallway to your right and the third door on the left is a bathroom you can use to change your clothes in. Just bring the pants to me here when you're done. She handed him his clothes and watched as Naruto and Inu disappeared down the hall to where the bathroom was. She then turned to Kiba and gave him a lecture about keeping his promises and that she was extending the length of time until he can find his partner, since it was obvious that he was not ready for the responsibility to care for anyone or thing yet. She also told him that Naruto had offered to do the work that Kiba was supposed to be doing after school left out and to not give him trouble. She glanced around at this point and was amazed at the work that was being done. Usually things just got counted and sometimes they were off because no one had the time to rearrange the stores in here, but Naruto seemed to be doing that for them right now and it seemed to be going well. Now you listen here, Kiba. Naruto isn't to be doing so much work. He is on medical restriction of low activity for a reason he can explain if he wants to. Remember, if he says no, then you will leave him alone. He may not want to let people know, and that's okay. Sum lectured, so when he gets back you will do the heavy lifting and listening to how he is having this place reorganized. Do you understand me? One complaint from him or Inu and you will be in more trouble than you already are in. Runt, she said, standing over him and glaring. Kiba nodded his head quickly and tried not to fall backwards. At this point Naruto came back with a sloppy folded pair of pants and walked up to Sum. She stood up and took the pants while gently patting his blonde hair, which he leaned into. Naruto, you can start the count while also directing Kiba here on where you want the stuff you have organized to be placed in the correct spots. And I smell cleaning products. Have you been whipping the shelves? Naruto nodded and she smiled at him. Then Kiba will finish whipping down the shelves as he works. Kiba, this is your added punishment for not doing what I asked you to do in the first place. I don't want to hear any bad reports from either Naruto or Inu, who will supervise you here. Sume said, then turned to leave the room, nodding to Inu, who was now standing by the door now that the heavy lifting could be left to Kiba. He would watch both but made sure Naruto was writing his count correctly. They boys got to work with Kiba grumbling and Naruto telling him how he was setting everything up. At first Kiba tried just throwing everything on the shelves, but Naruto tried stopping him. This almost resulted in a fight, but Inu stepped in and reprimanded Kiba before it got that far. Kiba was really angry about this and made it known by complaining about the extra work. All you had to do was count, baka. Making all this extra work for no reason at all, and now I'm the one stuck doing it. Why can't I count and you do the lift? You that weak that my mom needs to baby you. Kiba sneered at Naruto, who only looked like he was about to throw the clipboard at Kiba's head. Now, Kiba-san. You heard your mother say she doesn't want any problems from you, so get back to work. Naruto and I have done the majority of the organizing and cleaning. You are just finishing it, so no need in acting as though you have been doing this project from the start. Said Inu from where he stood watching. The Inuzuka boy has only been here for a few minutes and already Inu wanted Naruto away from the kid. Okay, so maybe he was being too protective now. Now that he was finally being allowed near the little boy, his baby brother, he wanted to protect him. After hearing so much over the years and reading the reports Minato had asked to be brought to him, he was disappointed in himself, and even though Minato wasn't, he said he understood Kakashi and why he did what he did. Kakashi wasn't even sure himself and had thrown himself at Minato's feet, telling him that there was no excuse for his actions. Even with the council forbidding him, he should have done something, anything. Flashback. On his knees and body folded so his head touched the floor, his mind racing. All the times Minato helped him and took care of his after his father died, even before becoming a genin under him. All the time Kushina had made him fight off a laugh, cuddled him, and shown him how to do normal non-ninja things. How both of them opened their home and fed him, cared for him after nightmares he never had to tell them about, and trips to see movies like a normal family or even person. Even when he was a foolish child and acted as though he didn't need anything from anyone, they showed how proud they were of all of his achievements and made a picture book for him, one he still had even today, found amongst the rubble of the one house. And when they informed him of the new family member, telling him that he would either be a big brother or an uncle depending on what he wanted the kid to call him, telling him they would have it no other way. All this weighted so heavily even now on Kakashi, and the dam finally broke as he shouted at Minato to be mad at him and that Minato had every right to be. Told Minato all the reasons or perceived sins to why they should hate and despise him. Only once he stopped and panted quietly on the floor did Minato move. He reached out, climbing off the bed to the floor, to the young man he helped raise since the boy's father died. He knelt beside him and pulled him into a tight hug, one hand in his hair on the back of his head, the other wrapped tightly around his back. Kakashi had his face over Minato's shoulder, as he saw Kushina mouth, "We love you, Kashi-kun." Kakashi slowly wrapped his arms around Minato. He was loved the same as he always was, little brother figure or son figure. Kakashi, I could never ask you to do more than what you were able to do. You yourself have always had a hard time when something has harmed your heart and soul. That night when you and the village were told that Kushina and I had died, I can only imagine what ran through your head. Then to read so many reports on the multitude of S and SS class missions you took back to back like you were trying to commit suicide. It broke our hearts, but I wanted to speak with you when you were ready. I guess now is that time, Masuko-san. Kakashi's breath halted at this word. Son, Minato-sensei called him son. Kakashi didn't know when, but he was crying now and holding onto Minato like a lifeline. End flashback. They talked for hours, even moved back onto the bed so Kushina could even join in the comforting they would give a child they loved, no matter how old or mature he may think himself. Since then Kakashi has felt much lighter than any other time he could remember, and maybe, just maybe, he could start moving on with the help of his family. Maybe even find a love like Minato's one day. For now he was content just watching and teaching Naruto, his little brother. The boys worked on the store room that had become really disorganized over time. It seemed back into order. Eventually they finished just as Jiraiya's chakra signature appeared following Sume to their location. Ho ho ho. Putting the brat to work already, I see. My, this looks good, kid, but we got to go and meet up with Tsunade. Say your goodbyes to your friend there and let's get moving. Jiraiya said, turning to talk to Inu for a moment, then dismissing him for the rest of the evening. Inu talked a bit more though, stating he would wait until they left before he took his leave. Inu needed to grab his Ninken's food apparently and report to Sume about the boys' interaction. That blonde lady, right? Asked Naruto after turning his attention to Jiraiya. Jiraiya nodded, confused by the question. Naruto rushed over to Sume and handed her the clipboard with the count fully done. He then showed her how he broke up the storage by walking with her. She expressed how impressed she was and messed his hair a few times. Naruto leaned into it every time. Sume kept her hand on longer than necessary on his head with a sad smile. Once that was done, Jiraiya got a surprise as Naruto ran right past him instead of coming right up to him like he thought he would do once ready to go. Following Naruto to the kennels for healing animals as he ran to one of the cages and jumped a few times. Jiraiya walked up to him, then picked Naruto up, who squawked, facing him so Naruto's back pressed against his chest and butt was on his forearm. Naruto reached out to the cage he was trying to see into and undid the door, opening it and making Jiraiya pull him back a bit to help with opening it. Jiraiya stepped up to the cage and saw a small black kitten inside with small cast, one on the front leg and one on the back leg, along with medical wrap around his stomach. This must be the kitten Kakashi had asked about Minato and Kushina to adopting that he footed the bill for, not that he minded if it made Naruto happy. Tozen-chan, I got to go now. You be good for Mrs. Sume and I'll come back when I can, said Naruto, scratching the kitten's head softly. The kitten stirred and looked at Naruto, then yawned at Naruto. Jiraiya caught Inu snapping a pic of this before finally leaving, and made a mental note to start doing that too and letting Tsunade know to do that as well. Naruto shut the cage door after he finished petting the small animal and then turned in Jiraiya's arms, giving him a hug and cheek nuzzle with a giggle, then hopped down. With a wave to the Inuzukas, Naruto went to the door leading out and waited for Jiraiya, who after saying bye to everyone followed his unknowing grandson. Jiraiya led Naruto down the street, watching as many civilians moved away from Naruto or whispered poorly about the little blonde. Naruto just flashed a big smile as he walked with his hands behind his head and eyes squinted. He walked by without a hint of having heard any of what was being said. Jiraiya was proud yet sad. No child should be able to hear this or brush it off so well. Jiraiya led Naruto to the small family dinner Tsunade was waiting in with a table reserved for 3. Jiraiya grabbed Naruto's hand when he started entering and noticed Naruto stop. Jiraiya made sure Naruto didn't feel like he was being hidden by Jiraiya by making sure Naruto was at his side, not behind. They walked in and told the receptionist about meeting Tsunade at a table. The receptionist was so starstruck by not only meeting Lady Tsunade but also Lord Jiraiya that she never noticed Naruto as she led them back. Jiraiya sat once Naruto in the center between him and Tsunade did he finally sit and start helping Naruto with his napkin and menu. Hey Yaheim, sorry we're late, but Naruto was helping Sume-sama with the stock count and really did a good job by cleaning it with Inu and Kiba's help, said Jiraiya, smiling and ruffling Naruto's hair affectionately. Oh, is that so? Then why was your apartment such a mess if you know how to clean, young man? Tsunade asked, taking a sip of sake from the small white dish it was in. A bottle sat not far from her with more. Naruto looked down after biting his lip. Maybe he should tell them, but if he did, would they take back all the nice things they had given him? He decided to be honest. After all, he didn't want the nice things to be ruined if they could go to someone who would have a chance at protecting them. It's not that I liked leaving it dirty, but every once in a while someone breaks into my apartment and will wreck it randomly. I just got tired of cleaning it after it happened for months every time I was at the academy. I tried locking them out and bracing the door, they just break in still, and I can't lift or push anything heavy enough to hold the door closed. I was climbing out the window for a while trying different things, so I would understand if you want to take those nice things back and give them to someone else since it will happen again. I'm actually due for them to come again soon. Naruto said softly, looking ashamed at his inability to stop whoever was breaking in. Jiraiya growled loud enough to scare Naruto for a moment, then he gently picked up Naruto for a moment, making the kid squawk again at suddenly not having control of where he was. One day he'd be too big for this, but for now it was a bit scary being suddenly moved like that, though it was nice. Naruto realized Jiraiya was giving him a hug, though it was brief. I'm gonna make sure they can't do a damn thing to your home, just sit here a moment, I'll be back. Don't worry kid, I'll make them regret every touching your home. Jiraiya said, stomping off. After having set Naruto down, muttering to himself as he left, people saw him coming and moved quickly out of his way with the vibes he was giving off. Naruto's eyes were wide as he sat on the edge until Naruto was pulled from behind into something soft. Then he was dragged further onto the bench seat that was horseshoe-shaped. Tsunade had grabbed him to sit him closer to her while they wait for Jiraiya to come back. She would order drinks and an appetizer while they wait. The waiter had paused when he took Naruto's order, but when he went to speak to Tsunade he bit his tongue, when she glared at him as if daring to do or say anything. They got their drinks and Naruto was told to munch on the small chips called Renkin chips, lotus root chips, that came with a dip. She took her chance quickly to put his medicine, tasteless and odorless, into his dip-made dip up. You can eat them without any dip, for the chips, and quickly used his knife to spread it on his chips. He asked what it was and she said she would only tell him once he tasted it. He loved it and didn't care that it was a veggie after he was told. If veggies can taste like this, then I don't mind eating them. I guess I just don't like it when they taste like dirt. Naruto said, making a face, which Tsunade laughed, ruffling his hair, and continued making conversation. After 30 minutes Jiraiya came back and sat down, taking a drink from the hot green tea that was waiting for him, though it was a bit cooler now. Okay Naruto, you won't have to worry about anyone getting into your apartment anymore without you either letting them in or it being you, Tsunade, Sarutobi-sensei, Inu, or I. I put a full home security seals on both doors and your 3 windows. Jiraiya said, smiling and ruffling Naruto's hair. Naruto asked why and Jiraiya pulled out a scroll and some ink. Jiraiya started explaining Fuinjutsu to Naruto and doing a small shield demo with a glass of water and having Naruto try and knock it over. Naruto was hooked, but Jiraiya explained they had to get Naruto caught up with normal basics along with Naruto's calligraphy being near perfect to perfect before even starting this. By this time the waiter and another person came to the table. The new person cleared his throat. Lord Jiraiya, Lady Tsunade, what an honor it is to have you with us today. I am the owner of this establishment, Yukino-kyo. You may not be aware of this, but this thing, he points at Naruto, who tries to hide as the people near look over at 2 famous names, is not allowed in this establishment. I will have him removed so you might enjoy the rest of your meal in peace. He reaches out to grab Naruto by his new shirt, but a large hand grabs his arm with moderate pressure applied. Well, if this young child isn't allowed in, I guess we had best leave, since a simple child apparently is too much for this restaurant to handle. Come along Naruto, Tsunade-hime, we have a better place to be for a good meal. Said Jiraiya, letting go of the manager roughly and then gently grabbing Naruto's shoulder to lead the embarrassed boy out. That's okay anyway, I had just gotten done talking to the health inspector and here you were having problems with rat hairs appearing in your food anyway and was about to suggest another place. But you bribed him so you could continue working while maybe taking care of the problem that has happened multiple times. Said Jiraiya loudly enough that his voice carried across the restaurant. Many people either spat out their food or started retching what they have just eaten. The owner immediately started protesting and trying to reassure everyone that that wasn't true, but everyone knew about the famous Sennin. Many people started getting angry at the owner, demanding to see the paperwork when Jiraiya pulled out a batch of papers he had planned for such an event and looked up dirt on the restaurant in case they tried anything with Naruto. Moments after, a group of Anbu appeared like ordered by the Hokage that when Jiraiya revealed this information it was time to move in. Ushi Takoi, by order of Lord Third, you are to come with us and all assets pertaining to your business and personal life are seized until an investigation is complete. Anbu Ox turned to the restaurant goers. Please submit any complaint about this incident to the tower in 24 hours in written form. Now please leave in an orderly fashion as this place is closed until further notice. Several of the Anbu had moved to the back room to collect the paper trail as one took Takoi away in a sunshine. Jiraiya told Naruto and Tsunade that he had just received this and was coming to take them to Ichiraku's for dinner instead, to which Naruto cheered loudly. They left after everyone else had cleared out, and the waiter was detained after he started going on about how this was all Naruto's fault. They entered Ichiraku's and went to the counter where Naruto literally jumped into a seat due to his short stature. Tsunade reprimanded him, telling him to ask for help instead of jumping, while Jiraiya chuckled and put a hand on her shoulder, while shaking his head, in a silent reminder that the kid wasn't used to help from anyone. There was no reason to get mad at the poor kid since he more than likely been doing this because of never having help before. They would have to work with him on that. Naruto paid the two no mind. All he could do was smile happily at the two behind the counter. Oi, old man, I'm hungry and brought 2 friends, Datbeo. Naruto shouted loudly, earning another reprimand. Naruto, that is rude. You can't just shout things like that in a restaurant and disrespect the people serving you anything. Apologize now, young man, said Tsunade as she turned Naruto around, waving a finger in front of his face. She then heard a chuckle from behind the counter. Aha, it's okay, Lady Tsunade, he's a family friend and I told him it was okay to call me that. It brings back old memories of another person I once knew, said Tsuki coming from the back, whipping his hands on the dish towel on his shoulder. Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at him, while Naruto beamed at Tsunade. He made the had sings for I know who, and they knew he knew about Naruto's heritage. But since it seemed he knew to keep a lid on it, there was no problem. Ah, and Jiraiya-sensei, been a long time since I last saw you. How have you been? Tsuki asked as both Tsunade and Jiraiya took their seats on either side of Naruto, who was turning around to the counter again. I'm good, how about you and the family? I bet little Ayame-chan is a little beauty by now, said Jiraiya with a non-perverted smile. How's the arm been? Any more trouble with it? Tsuki smiled and answered proudly about his daughter and that she was currently out on a ramen delivery and should be back in a few minutes. Then answered about his arm, which he had injured while a genin during the Chunin exams, forever ending his ninja career. He had shattered his shoulder blade and tore the muscle so badly during the second exam that, due to not getting immediate attention, killed some of the nerve endings. Though they made it through and his other 2 teammates went to the 3rd round and finals with both making it to Chunin. He was unable to move his arm for a long time and eventually found a girl and settled down. The rest is history, as one would say. He took their order while catching up with everyone. He admitted that every once in a while having some problems with loss of use to his arm, but normally he was fine as long as he kept moving it so it didn't stiffen. Also had to watch how often he lifted her with that side, and wrapping it at night. Tsunade offered to have look at to see if she could help it any more, since she has come up with new treatments over the years for loss of muscle and nerves due to damage. He happily agreed to having Tsunade look at it when she had the time. They of course asked if he might be free later tonight at about 10 or so, and he said he would be able to close early. Jiraiya excused himself for a bit to meet with someone, to which Tsunade nodded her head in agreement, already knowing he was heading to see Minato and let him know of the future visit of an old teammate. Tsuki deserved it after all and would be great support for Naruto later in life, hopefully. Tsunade got up, while Jiraiya left, and went behind the counter to run her hand over the shoulder for a moment to get an idea of what was going on. She asked Tsuki to step into the back for a moment, so she could look at it, telling Naruto to wait a moment in his seat. Tsuki, I need you to slip this into Naruto-chan's food and make sure it dissolves into it. He's very thin and needs this medicine to help him rest and regain his weight. You can mix these both in his one bowl, please. Sorry, but you're gonna need to see me in the hospital about your shoulder blade, said Tsunade, looking back at the doorway. She didn't want Naruto to know he was taking medicine. Tsuki nodded and they separated so he could make the food and Tsunade could return to Naruto. After a bit, Jiraiya came back, having sent a clone in his place once he was sure it was safe for him to do so. Walking back in, the food was just being passed to Naruto and Tsunade, his bowl being balanced for the moment until Jiraiya took a seat and it was placed in front of him. Then came the drinks: sake for the adults and water and apple juice for Naruto. They talked for a while as they, Tsunade and Jiraiya, ate their meals until Ayame came in and joined in. Naruto was inhaling his favorite meal by the boatload. Tsunade watched as he packed it away with wide eyes, never having seen anything like it before. She did make a request for Tsuki to add more veggies and meat to each bowl to get more vitamins in the kid, though when she asked for menma to be added, Naruto made a huge stink about the nasty food angrily. To the point, he stopped eating when she wouldn't let him eat anything that wasn't the menma. Jiraiya made a point to make a deal with Naruto. He would eat the other veggies with 3 side bowls of a fruit of their choice. Naruto agreed and received a large bowl of oranges, apples and grapes. Ayame had gone and gotten with Jiraiya's money, which he devoured. Finally, after 22 bowls of ramen, 3 bowls of fruit and 8 glasses of juice or water, they were all full. Jiraiya wept at the expense of the meal due to the kid, but then saw Naruto's content smiling face as he patted his belly. They left after saying of farewells and headed to the next destination. Naruto was curious as to where they were going while starting to feel the effects of the medicine making him drowsy. By this time, they got to their destination. He was stumbling, the building came into view and they entered. Naruto realized that this was a bathhouse that he never entered because he didn't want to be so exposed in a large group of people that may hurt, but he guessed he could try it if these two were with him. With that thought, a tired smile popped on his face and he leaned into Tsunade subconsciously, to which she smiled and took his hand. Naruto startled a moment, then leaned more into her with a brighter smile, while rubbing his face into her hand that held his. Tsunade smiled sadly at this show for need of attention. This village will be shown what fools they were soon enough, but first she would need to get his parents better. She would do it, and now more than ever she found her reason. Something as simple as holding someone's hand should never make a kid this happy. Tomorrow she was going into the operation room and not leaving until she was able to function around the blood waiting there. This thought sent a shiver and almost froze her. Then she squeezed his hand and took a deep breath as he squeezed back, smiling even wider at her. She would take this image and feeling into the operation room and conquer this fear. With that, she turned back to what was going on around her. The water Jiraiya had her test from the apartment was not any good. There was feedback from the septic into the regular water and the mercury was a bit higher than it should have been. She had gone right to her sensei and informed him of such, to which he immediately had the water shut off for everything but the toilet and several cases of bottled water sent to the apartment, and told her to come to him when the water was getting low and he would have more sent to them. After she told her sensei, she told Jiraiya and in turn also her son and daughter-in-law. Since he was still with them, going over reports and helping making plans for stuff in the new home that was being built and the plans for the reunion, she would catch up later on the plans and such. They were furious at first, then made plans for resolving the issue. Jiraiya said he would go to a bathhouse and rent a private family bathtub for the 2 months and work with the water that sensei was providing for everything else. The apartment of course will be demolished as soon as Naruto was returned to his parents. So here they were ready to bathe in the private family room, together. It was a bit nerve-wracking for Tsunade, bathing with the pervert, but she guessed that she should get over it since they did have a kid together and he had seen it all once before. They walked back to the room without incident, the attendant at the front not even taking her eyes off the magazine to help them or notice. Naruto just handed them a key and pointed while speaking. They went in and disrobed, with Tsunade going behind the divider and wrapping in a towel, then coming out to see Jiraiya trying to get Naruto to wear a towel around his waist like him. Naruto wasn't having it though and refused the towel while trying to go to the tub. Jiraiya and Tsunade stopped him, explained that he had to scrub off the dirt before getting into the tub, and showed him what they meant. Naruto was confused as to why Tsunade wore a towel like she did, but all they said was she was a female girl and that was they did versus the boys' way of wearing one. He just accepted it as a good enough answer and made a note to have Gigi add a few more questions to the list for whoever was going to answer them. Tsunade and Jiraiya found out about the list their sensei was making and thought that the returning parents should enjoy even the most embarrassing things like this, so though Tsunade really wanted to explain for the poor confused boy, it was too funny to pass up. They helped Naruto scrub and wash with Tsunade unrolling the items need from a scroll. Apparently Kushina had made a special shampoo to help hair growth, saying that she wanted to have Naruto in a traditional Uzumaki hairstyle, but since Tsunade, when asked, said the boy's hair was long but really uneven, they would let it grow really long and shaggy then cut it before the meeting. It was a daily treatment and would need to sit while he soaked in the tube. She brought a shower cap for him to wear so it wouldn't get wet and wash out. If it did work, she just might use a bit herself, otherwise it was like any other, then no loss, just really clean hair. Though Kushina said it was a Uzumaki secret recipe for when a battle cut off their hair, it was why all Uzumaki were known for their long hair, male or female. After they were done cleaning Naruto up, it was then Tsunade's turn to wash Jiraiya's back, somehow being talked reads quietly guilted into it, and Naruto hers. They then went to the tub where Naruto jumped in, splashing everyone and hurting his butt because it wasn't that deep, unlike how the hot springs can get. The tub was just deep enough that when Naruto stood up it was just past his pelvis, but when the adults sat it was just starting to soak Tsunade's chest area. Naruto splashed about and Jiraiya showed him how to press water between his hands so it shot up after doing it and getting Naruto in the face, making him laugh. They talked and splashed each other a bit when Naruto got playful before he got sleepy again and started falling asleep sitting there. The medicine finally winning again once the excitement wore off of a new place to explore, and the poor kid stood no chance of fighting it. Tsunade got out and laid a blanket on the ground near the tub and another was folded so that it could pillow Naruto's head, while Jiraiya picked the sleepy kid up and then placed him on the blanket. They sat back in the tube, after covering the kid to keep him warm, and talked quietly as soft soars from Naruto were heard. Another half hour was reached and it was time to go. Gathering up Naruto, rinsing out the shampoo and changing him into his night clothes was Jiraiya's job, while Tsunade gathered everything then changed herself. By then Jiraiya was back in his original outfit and ready to go as he held a sleeping Naruto in a blanket in his arms. They left the same way they had come in and headed home. By this time it was almost 7 at night and the streets were lightly crowded with soft light shining on the streets. As they walked they noticed people separating and bowing only to turn around and notice the daimyo and his entourage were coming down the street heading to the Hokage mansion. Tsunade and Jiraiya stepped to the side like all the others and bowed, Jiraiya carefully with Naruto in his arms, as they came near only to have noticed that the daimyo and Hokage stop. "Ah, Tsunade-kun, Jiraiya-kun, how nice it is to see you both and within the village walls together nonetheless," they heard Lord Oda say. "Oh, and who is this little blonde? Did you two have a child?" The daimyo says with a bit of excitement at the prospect of them having a kid. "This is Naruto-kun, Lord Oda," said Tsunade. The daimyo ordered them to stand so he might get a look at the child, only to pause and turn to Hiruzen, eyes hard as steel. "Hiruzen-kun, I think you and I have much more to talk about than we originally thought. This child can't be theirs, he looks like," leans in closer to Naruto who's still asleep. Yes, just like him, I must say." Lord Oda turns and glares at Hiruzen, now not liking the idea of not being told something so important. "Where were you just heading with this child, Jiraiya-kun?" asked Oda, looking at Jiraiya again, still looking angry. "To his apartment, Oda Dono. It is only a little way from the east side of this market," answers Jiraiya with a small bow, being careful of Naruto. "Hiruzen, we will be making a detour and accompany these three. I want to see where this child lives," says Lord Oda, to which Hiruzen gulps nervously, knowing that his grave just got dug deeper. "Daimyo-sama, this is not safe, we should head straight to the mansion, we are in a village full of ninja after all," said one of the Guardian 12 coming forward. "You already refused to ride in your ox-pulled carriage, now you wish to go to a home in an unsecure area. Please Lord Oda, let us go to the mansion," pleaded the same guardian, pointing at said ox-drawn carriage. The lord, who had started to follow Jiraiya and Tsunade, turned to his guardian and lifted his folded fan to sit under his chin. Are you not one of my hand-selected guards here to protect me from anything, or should I be looking for someone else to fill that position? Asked Lord Oda with a slight glare as if daring the guard to speak out again. The guardian snapped to attention, knowing that there was going to be repercussions later when the daimyo had a moment. Once the daimyo was sure of the guardian was sufficiently quieted, he returned to following Jiraiya's lead. They said nothing as they traveled down the street, not even when they left the market and went to the living district, from what the daimyo would call the high end of lower class, almost low middle class. They walked for another minute or two and came up to a building that stood out due to the unkempt look it had compared to the buildings around it. The Hokage could feel the fury coming off the normally jolly and easygoing man at the sight of the words freshly painted on the side of the building. Demon, murder, and just die already, painted in bold red, still dripping down the side. Wasn't like this a few hours ago, must have gotten mad they couldn't enter the apartment. Jiraiya said with anger in his voice, I'll work on cleaning that before the kid wakes, though one of our ninja must have been in on this to reach the whole wall like this, and I think I see some footprints. Jiraiya says, pointing at the area near the balcony. It wasn't easy for non-ninjas to see from where they were standing, but it was there. A few nodded as the Hokage called an Anbu to come and take a look and gather evidence to find the culprits and to have someone clean the mess. They went in and the chill on Hiruzen's back intensified as they entered and made their way to Naruto's home. The graphite was on the inside as well, and the place had more holes in the walls. Even the wall near Naruto's door was broken open, though they didn't make it all the way inside. At this point, two Anbu showed up with 3 people announcing that they were leaving from the back of the building. 2 were genin and 1 civilian around the ages of 12 to 14, they were thankfully gauged and bound. The daimyo glared at them from behind his fan as the Hokage stripped them of their Hittite. They were taken to prison until they could go for interrogation. I had thought that this had stopped since Naruto hasn't said anything for a long time now about this. I will be posting Anbu on the outside and hiring some carpenters, along with transferring the title of the building to Naruto when he is old enough or his Chunin rank, informed the Sandaime Hokage to the daimyo, though Minato may do something differently. To this the daimyo nodded his acceptance and they continued on into the young boy's home. Thought the apartment was better than the halls outside the current apartment. It was still very disappointing to the daimyo. There was no way Sarutobi could deny that this child was Princess Kushina's child, though he really looked like Minato-kun, everything but the round face and what may be wide eyes if they were open. They were Kushina's for sure, but what color those eyes were the daimyo did not know. The daimyo watched as Jiraiya walked back following Tsunade to a room. He followed after as his guards walked in and started securing the apartment. Oda watched as Jiraiya and Tsunade tucked the small child into what looked like a new bed. If I am correct, then this child should be about 8 years old as of this October, am I correct, Hiruzen? Asked Oda as eyed the size of the child and thought of when his parent died, thus not notifying him about the child. That would be correct, Lord Oda. Naruto will be 8 as of October 10th. Confirmed Hiruzen, also watching from behind the daimyo. Then answer me this: why, when both of his parents were over average in height, is this child so small? He looks no more than a 5-year-old and vastly underfed. The daimyo hissed quietly to Hiruzen, turning a hard eye to the old cage as he rapidly fanned himself. I can answer all questions once I show you some neutral friends, though for security reasons your guards will not be able to come with us, though either Jiraiya or Tsunade can come in their place if you need a guard, said Hiruzen quietly said. The guards protested this, but the daimyo raised his hand to silence them and looked at Hiruzen in interest. Very well, Hiruzen, we will go see these people and then I will have all my answers and then we will discuss what will happen from there. Let this be known, Hiruzen, you are not off the hook, not by a long shot. I should have been informed about this child, this Naruto-kun, said the daimyo harshly. Hiruzen bowed his head in acceptance to the daimyo's anger. Hiruzen gestured for Lord Oda to come into the child's bedroom and shut the door behind them, making sure the guards stayed out. Jiraiya watched as Hiruzen signed for the room to be sealed, so no one could know what they were doing conversation-wise or chakra-wise. Once the room was sealed, Hiruzen made 3 clones and had them transform into Jiraiya, Lord Oda and Hiruzen himself. These clones will go in our place as we go see our friends and no one will be the wiser about it. This may be the only time we can get there with no one the wiser, and for the continued safety of our friends, trust me Lord Oda, you will be surprised. Said Hiruzen. He then put his hand on the Lord's shoulder and sunshined out of the room, leaving Jiraiya to follow and Tsunade to watch things at the apartment. Once they were gone, the false daimyo went with the false Hiruzen to the manor with the guards while saying that they would go later to see the neutral friends and summon Jiraiya then. Real Hiruzen sector protection. Hiruzen walked in front of the daimyo with a large smile. He knew that this would be a great surprise, though he did feel guilty about not checking Naruto's home himself after what his two students had told him about the apartment, though not much about the building in general. Hiruzen walked up to the door and allowed Lord Oda to enter. Apparently Kushina and Minato had been watching when Kushina called out, "Oda-chan." A feminine voice called out from behind the curtain, cheerfully, making the Lord's eyes wide with recognition, "Just whole." The voice called out again, but too late. The Lord had shot forward and ripped the divider open, only to be met with a metal pan with water to his face and a squeak. Hiruzen quickly turned but was still smacked upside the head with another object, a bar of soap. Oda was on the floor holding his nose and face, quivering in pain, while Hiruzen was rubbing the back of his head where a lump had formed. "Oda-chan, you can't just charge into a room no matter who you think you are. I told you before about trying to peep on me, or I'll flatten you, that is if my husband doesn't kill you first." Lectured an angry Kushina as Minato helped her back into a new set of clothes, though he was giving his death glare that froze most people upon seeing the icy eyes. "We were not expecting you for a while yet, so I was helping Kushi-koi here with getting cleaned up before your arrival. Lord Oda, I will forgive you this time because you were shocked, but if you attempt to peep on my wife again you will no longer be breathing. Am I understood, Lord Oda?" asked Minato coldly, helping Kushina lay back down carefully and like a mother hen, making sure she would be comfortable. Kushina used to Minato's cuddling for his loved ones, allowed it because though Minato loved to be cuddly, he didn't do it often, knowing that his beloved wife was very independent. Minato has always let Kushina be herself and allowed her to show her strength even before they really got to dating, but that's not to say that he didn't watch over her either as support or backup depending on the situation. Lord Oda sat up looking at the two in shock. He could not believe his eyes. Minato looked tired and even unsteady on his feet, while Kushina was relying heavily on him to be moved and supported. "Well, Lord Oda, we have much to cover and very little time to cover it. So, let's get started." And so again Hiruzen retold the story and the current situation. The village hidden in the leaf was balancing on the edge of a sharp dual-bladed knife in fear. The once calm village now was turned on its head, starting with the daimyo's visit about 2 months back. 2 days into his visit and the town was awaking to many stores mysteriously being closed and owners disappeared just as mysteriously, only to find that they were under investigation until further notice. Even some of the non-store owners disappeared from time to time. Either the civilian and clan council members were currently blocked from calling meetings and speaking to the daimyo and Hokage at all. The Hokage was being locked down to bare minimal contact to any other than Anbu, approved personnel, his students and one little blonde boy. Many claimed it was the child's fault for the Hokage not showing himself, some claiming he was controlling the Hokage, others saying he killed another Hokage and was pretending to be the Hokage. This caused many people to riot and more Anbu to be placed around the poor child and any place he visits. As time went on, more people were taken in and interrogated. Most came back but had seals that for time any form of communication to others around them about what happened was stopped. None knew about the seals and thought yet again that it was the Kyuubi's doing when few of the people became frozen and unable to move, then was hauled off by the Anbu yet again. It was becoming a village of fear. Many tried to move out of the village but they were denied and returned to their homes locked within walls that used to mean safety. The streets were becoming barren, an utter ghost town. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Inu never allowed Naruto to be alone at any time due to increased attacks on the child, even with the three as his guard. Even some of the ninja in the ranks had attacked the kid, ranging from Genin to Junin, though those were far and few between. As for the group, they worked with Naruto and made sure he was taken care of. Shizune joined in the guard rotation for Naruto after taking 2 weeks to caught up due to running errands needing to be done for Tsunade. Shizune was very pleased to hear about them staying until further notice but did not know the reason why, though she chalked it up to Naruto and his adorable ways, having fallen for the affectionate child. Tsunade got over her fear of blood after one of Naruto's pranks that got him grounded for the first time ever. He had pretended to be dead after Jiraiya and Tsunade locked him into the apartment when neither them nor Inu or Shizune could be with him and they were called in for an emergency. Tsunade returned right away after everything settled down and she was dismissed only to find Naruto lying face down in blood, really thickened jello mixed to look like blood. At first, she freaked out and panicked, then jumped back into action only to have a laughing child under her glowing palms, to which she spanked him and then smothered him in hugs. Then she grounded him for a week, making him study twice as much and made him clean the whole mess by himself. Shizune came in not long after that, having just arrived and heard what happened, and she too chewed the boy but was happy with Tsunade's new resolve and later actions of working in the operation room with very little to no problem. She was cured. Many retired or force retired were being sorted through and given either low active duty jobs alongside active shinobi in office jobs. Many were being offered new chances to learn new skills and opportunities, thus freeing up many healthy chunin to get more training and help to improve their skills. Many who wanted to move up and felt that they couldn't were becoming hopeful once more for a second chance at making it big. While quantity was going up, quality was also actively being improved as well. Junin and chunin were being made to help one another on the new field training regimen that was handed out. The will of fire was burning bright once again for many that were only flickers turned into bonfires. The academy itself was having every student re-examined and resorted as many classes became broken apart and teachers worked frantically to sort and patch lesson gaps. The physical side was stepped up gradually for all classes and loads of class work was redone by all grades of the academy. Many kids, mostly civilian-raised and orphans, were finally getting the help they needed since the classes were tailored better for each type of living situation. Whether the kids came from ninja background or not was taken into consideration but not blindly followed, because there were exceptions to the rule always. For example, Kiba landed in a mostly civilian class for a while because of his careless actions. His mother was harder on him after that and he returned to a normal level for ninja-raised children of first group. It was announced that almost everyone would be restarting this year on October 13, the Monday after QB Festival. By then the level ratings would be sorted. There would be one exception for the first years, and it was only because of the unfair advantage this child was given. After the 1 year he would be properly ranked, this student being one Uzumaki Naruto. As for Naruto, after another week of learning from Jiraiya, he insisted on going back to class, saying he wanted to prove to everyone that he wasn't a loser or stupid. He worked with Inu and Iruka, who was made his personal tutor during school, to redo all his assignments and keep up with current ones. Though it was an uphill battle with Naruto's attention span and the medication that made him sleepy, but since it was lighter, not so bad anymore. His weight was nearing normal and his food levels were being evened out to normal standards, at least for Uzumaki standards, and the medication was being slowly withdrawn. Now the hyperactive boy was back after 1 month and 1 week after meeting Jiraiya and Tsunade. They were impressed by the cheerfulness even when having the entire village angry and some even attacking him, though there were the few moments at night when he thought he was alone after he would wake up from a nightmare. He would sit on his bed and look out on the village singing a song softly to himself. Tsunade took it upon herself to go in and calm the boy, tucking him back into bed. At first, he would stop singing as soon as she opened the door, but after a bit he would continue to sing as she tucked him in and she ran her fingers through his hair. When Naruto was fully free of the medication, it was found that he was apparently running around doing more than just pranking. He was also helping elderly who lived in the poor district or unfortunates that lived there and could not either help themselves or afford any D ranks for help. Widows, elders, sickly and even homeless lived there, and apparently, Naruto was welcomed among them. This child that was tormented by others was accepted here, and the reason why was because they knew of his kind and gentle heart. When he had free time after school, training, studies, homework, visiting Tozen, and helping the Inuzuka veterinary office, Naruto would always run down to the poor area of the village and help whoever needed, whether it was cutting grass, pulling weeds, babysitter, helper, laundry, and house repairs, as long as supplies were there and they could explain how to fix it. He went from one house to another, even helping those on the street by bringing more boxes and blankets he would find in dumpsters in the market areas on his way to the poor area. He even managed to sneak out with a few of his new blankets and give them out to a small homeless family with young children. One was 8 years old, another 5 years old. From what Naruto told Inu was that the father had died while on a mission as a fresh chunin from a field promotion, and that the small savings they had was used for a small infant that was ill and had passed away not long after the father due to lack of funds. They were kicked out of the small apartment not long after that and came to the poor district in order to stay together as a family. The mother would try and do as many odd jobs as she could in a day to maintain the small shack they had. Naruto was always bringing stuff he was able to find or hunt down for them, either long boards of wood to help patch walls in the shack, blankets to help them keep warm, fish for food fresh caught, or hauled water with an old bucket for them, whatever they needed, and asked for nothing in return from them. He enjoyed just having people that liked him and the few young people he could play with. The poor people would gather together and have a community meal, potluck style, every once in a while when Naruto was there. It was a fun event, one that Inu watched every time, since he found out from the shadow and informed the Hokage of the events, to which he directed Inu to find and bring all the information and files on everyone there. During the last 2 weeks, a chunin came in contact with the small family and helped them enter into a family preservation program made for families that had ninja spouses and need help with homes, food, and things like that. Naruto was so eager to help them move on and get into a better and safer area. As for Jiraiya, though he never gave up being a pervert, he really did tone it down with Naruto around. He did manage to get 2 dates out of Tsunade, though they were small due to the need of protecting Naruto. But he was happy even though the dates were more of them hatching out their issues and figuring out a plan in order to protect their family, and rarely whether they got together officially or not. Baby steps, but it was in the right direction at least, though it wasn't without hiccups along the way. The one time they did fight and Naruto saw, they felt really bad when the boy suddenly thought it was his fault for some reason, and later when Minato and Kushina got a hold of them. It wasn't pleasant, we'll put it that way. So here we come back to Naruto currently sat at his desk with Iruka beside him working on his work, though now Iruka was able to help others, mostly non-clan children, with the work, but his main focus was Naruto, who he found wasn't that bad. The more time Lord Oda spent with the kid, the more he was amazed by this boy's will of fire that the Sandaime always spoke of. He started believing that after continually speaking to the boy's current caretakers Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the one Anbu code named Inu, that one day this child would make a great Hokage, maybe even the greatest scene. Iruka also had the pleasure of running into Oda. Iruka had came to check on Naruto after not seeing him for a record-breaking time of 1 week for the first time since Iruka started working in the academy. Iruka had explained to Lord Oda, during his visit, that while he had it tough after his parents died, Naruto had it at least 10 times worse than him hands down, and yet he still was a carefree child. There of course were obvious signs that the kid wasn't fully unscratched by the cruelty he was submitted to. Naruto pined for contact and affection even in the smallest of forms. It was one of the reasons Iruka believed that Naruto pranked so much before Lord Jiraiya and Lady Tsunade, but rarely did nowadays. After figuring that out, Iruka went to the library to read books on how to deal with troubled kids and how to identify children and adults suffering from abuse. He even went to a Yamanaka about this for some more suggestions and help. He was basically told what to look for in behavior and how to help counter it, and where to go to help someone who was still in trouble while being beyond Iruka's help. Iruka learned loads about this and even found a couple of children in the class, 2 other than Naruto, that were suffering and managed to have them removed from their homes or problem. Iruka was proud and happy that he could help innocent children from falling down into darkness. One child even confessed that they were having thoughts of suicide. Now the student was getting help and would be given the option to either return to the ninja academy or to go back to civilian school and work. Iruka was feeling good about how things were turning out for him. Ever since that mission that he had killed so many, he was lost and at a friend's, Kakashi Senpai, suggestion and Hokage's blessing he worked to become an academy teacher. A program for academy teachers was being organized by the Hokage and Yamanakas and would also be implemented around October 13th. Iruka was praised and was to be appointed main contact for teachers to the cases found. Here now in the class he was working with, Iruka felt pride. Looking around the room to see if anyone looked like they needed any more help since Naruto seemed to be doing fine. It was nearing the end of the day as there was still a half hour until the bell rang and the school day was done. They had been told that tomorrow all clan children of this class would meet here and go with the Iruka and a few other teachers to the council room, pulse Naruto with an invite from the Hokage as his and Lord Oda's guest. Iruka was told to expect someone to come and pick Naruto up a bit before the bell rang and that Inu would be with them, otherwise he was not to release Naruto to anyone. At this point a knock came from the door as the teacher was just about to start announcements after having just written down the homework on the chalkboard. "Pardon the intrusion," said Inu as he opened the door and made way for whoever was behind him with a bow. The Chunin at the podium jumped from behind the podium to come around the front and bowed in the utmost respect to the person just beyond the door. "Lord Oda, what an honor to have you here at my class today. How may I serve you, my lord?" asked the Chunin still in a bow of respect. Upon seeing who was at the door when he finally came into view, the students also rose and bowed, well everyone but Naruto, who just stared at the guy in the doorway. Iruka quickly grabbed Naruto to get the boy up and into bow position, but was met with a kuni at his throat by Inu. Now Inu-kun, he doesn't know, and I believe he thought Naruto-kun was being disrespectful," said the daimyo with his fan out again hiding his smile. He eyed Naruto up, which made the small boy gulp, but then straightened up and walked down to meet the daimyo face to face. Inu released Iruka right after making the man tumble to the floor as his legs gave out. "What, got something to say, old man?" said the boy, standing up to his tippy toes to try and reach the daimyo's height to see into his eyes. Several people gasped at the boy who dared question the daimyo, only to hear the daimyo laugh. My, quite like her indeed. Come, young Naruto-kun, we are going to see Sarutobi-san at his house and you will be spending the night there and coming back to the class tomorrow to go to the event. Inu will be with him, Chunin-san," said the daimyo to the one by the podium as he placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder, and Inu appeared by them with Naruto's things ready to go. Just as quickly as they came they were gone, and the class broke out in whispers of the event that just took place. Tomorrow would be interesting, or in Nara's perspective, troublesome. With Naruto, the little boy, bouncing alongside the daimyo as they went to the Sarutobi clan's residence, Oda watched this child filled with such joy even after reading all the reports that came his way about the treatment of this bundle of sunshine. Yes, Nico was a proper term for this child, just like his mother with his father's dashing looks. This child would go places and do incredible things. This the daimyo knew just by watching this child. Oda knew he would not be able to smile after some of the things he had read, but that is why, for the soon-to-be crown prince of Uzushiogakure, he would punish the village and all involved on this matter. This is not acceptable behavior for the people living in the land of fire, no matter the village within his lands. Sad part, it was mostly civilians or civilian-raised ninja that attacked the child, not so much clan or common ninja families. They finally reached the Sarutobi clan residence and were met by Hiruzen with the few members behind him, and to the sides, lining the walk, was a lady bowing while she held a toddler, Konohamaru. He is 2 years old like Hanabi. Hiruzen bowed stiffly like it was a motion that was hard to do, may have been due to his old age but maybe not. Naruto saw someone he has only seen photos of and he smiled, then ran at the man waving. He came right up to the tall man with a short cropped black hair and a box-like jaw with a well-kept beard and a smoke, unlit, between his lips. He was wearing normal Junin uniform with a small addition to it, a little white triangle with a kanji for fire in red. "Yeta, are you Gigi's Asuma?" asked Naruto to the bowed man, who glanced up and nodded. "Good, now Gigi won't be sad anymore and you two can be a family again, Datbayo," cheered Naruto, stunning the man who looked at the elder Sarutobi. Hiruzen had stiffened at this remark, then bowed his head before turning around with a small smile to the small child. Naruto-kun, come, we have much to do, so you are ready for tomorrow's field trip to see the important council members and clan heads. You need to have your hair cut and styled, and the outfit we have chosen needs to be fitted so it can be worn correctly. Now come along, my personal tailor and stylist are waiting for you along with Jiraiya and Tsunade," said Lord Oda, holding out his hand for Naruto to take while hiding his smiling lips behind his fan. Hiruzen came to stand behind Oda and add to the conversation on the docket for the day. "Once that is complete, we will eat and then you will spend the night here. Inu will drop you off in the morning to school, then we will meet again at the council room," informed Hiruzen to the young boy with about a him. Naruto was a bit confused by the manner in which his Jiji spoke to him and acted towards him. Naruto walked up to him and hesitantly reached for the older man's hand by passing Oda's hand. "Jiji, if you're in pain, why don't you let Oba-san, Tsunade, heal you?" he said, standing still while Hiruzen turned to start walking only to stop when Naruto wasn't moving. "Jiji, what's wrong? Why are you acting like this?" Naruto said, starting to get upset. Something was wrong. Something was going on and he knew nothing or could do nothing to help or fix it, and now his Jiji was hurt. Hiruzen turned back to the small child and kneeled down and placed both hands on the boy's shoulders, though Naruto could tell this wasn't comfortable for him, but let it be. Hiruzen smiled and brushed the long bangs out of the child's eyes and whipped under each misty eye. "Naruto-kun, everything will be clear tomorrow, but no, I brought this on myself and now I must accept my punishment, just like when anyone does anything wrong. Remember when you got in trouble with Tsunade-chan and got grounded with 3 swats as a spanking?" asked Hiruzen, who got a nod. "Well, I did something that earned me my swats with the daimyo and thus I must accept my punishment, but I will be fine. Remember, I am just as human as anyone and I do make mistakes and must face the consequences of my actions," Hiruzen said as he looked into Naruto's concerned eyes. Naruto just stepped into the arms of the old man and gently hugged Hiruzen. They stayed like that for a few minutes before separating, and Hiruzen taking Naruto's hand yet again, leading him into the house to prepare for the next day and the surprises that awaited the child. Academy. Next day. The class was smaller today since all non-clan students were sent to another class for the day due to the clan heirs going on a special field trip to the council conference room in the Hokage Tower. Minor clans who had representatives but were in a different class came into their classroom, though there were not many minor clans that were on the council, just another 3 to 7 clans if they had any kids currently in the school system. Right now, there was not many, just 2, the Tachibana and Fujiwara. The clans were small basic ninja that didn't do more than have many of their family ninja attain status and serve faithfully. While not like Nara, Yamanaka, Akamichi, Inazuka, Aburame, Uchiha, Senju, Hyuga, and a few clans that haven't claimed their seat as of this moment, they contributed a large amount of their family and have supported this village as it was built to present. All the clan children were done up in their best outfits, proudly displaying their clan's marks. Everyone was well groomed and squeaky clean, even Kiba. Just about everyone was in and the bell would ring in another 2 minutes, then attendance would be taken before they left to attend the event in the council chambers. The door opened one more time and a blond boy stepped in. The boy was small for his age and well known because of the 3 whiskers-like marks on his face. But if he didn't have them, then no one would have known that this boy who just entered was none other than Uzumaki Naruto. He had been changing since that day about 2 months ago, when the Anbu had removed their original teacher Shibi-sensei from their class and dismissed it. At first it was just Naruto disappearing for about 2 weeks, then he returned and had to have a special teacher help him due to what was explained as unfair neglect, that apparently hurt Naruto's learning somehow. But when he came back he was always tired and allowed to sleep, much to Shikamaru's displeasure. He slowly started looking healthier. Everyone knew the kid was skinny, but only after Choji pointed it out did some really notice by how much. Then he slowly gained weight. His hair grew longer, eventually down to his mid-back. The last week or so saw Naruto back to a hyper level he was before everything. Shikamaru chalked it up to medication, since the Anbu Inu was very adamant about no one else sharing the food he had. Naruto was not allowed to do the same physical activities as the class but was off to the side, either working with the new teacher's aide Uruka or with Inu the Anbu, and it was always light, again to Shikamaru's envy and a bit of Choji's. Then yesterday's exit that spread like wildfire amongst the school, the daimyo of the Land of Fire had come and personally picked up Naruto. Something was up and everyone couldn't wait to find out. Shikamaru was even a bit stomped, but he just knew everything that has been going on was all due to the troublesome blonde. Looking at Naruto now, it was hard to believe he was an orphan and clanless. His hair was clean and cut. The hair was styled in a man ponytail similar to Inoichi's, but instead of the whole head it was just the top kept long, tied at the crown point of the head held by a thick rust orange tie, and the sides kept to just long enough to show the spikes the hair naturally had about just past first joint of the index finger. The front had 2 long side bangs, like Minato, with 5-inch red woven hair bands with white swirls in the red bands. The front center was trimmed and swept to the side while also remaining spiky, some falling gently spiked but out of his eyes. His clothes were the biggest change. Normally Naruto wore a t-shirt and cargo shorts with his sandals. Right now, Naruto was dressed in a pair of black pants with rust orange bandage wraps from mid-calf going down to his black sandals. His top was a no-sleeve tan gi with thick rust orange thread woven in large stitch-like manner, think young Kushina's top when Minato rescued her, and a thick rust orange belt that ties the gi shut. The gi stopped just past his waist and stopped after just covering his hips. A black skin-tight shirt was under that and more than likely had chainmail under that. On the back of the gi, as was seen when he rushed to his seat, was another white swirl patch. Naruto ruffled the back of his now shorter part of his hair just below the ponytail, as he smiling happily and answered when his name was called as his class looked on stunned at the sudden dramatic change and didn't hear the attendance called. Once everyone was called to order and lined up to leave, everyone was excited and happy to have a day off the normal schedule. With Minato and Kushina, Minato was pacing up a storm while Kushina sat in a wheelchair, both wearing warded cloaks, similar to Anbu mask used for hiding, and waiting for the children to enter. The clan heads were already there and the stage was almost set. Hiruzen and Lord Oda were upstairs still in the Hokage's office finishing up what was needed. Jiraiya was standing outside by the door leading from the council room from the one that Minato and Kushina were currently in, while Tsunade had taken her rightful seat back as heir to Senju. "Min-kun, you need to calm down, you're getting me wound up," said Kushina, rapidly tapping her hand against the armrest. The room was worded and had been for a while now to only allow the Hokage in her authorized personal so no one could hear them or see them, i.e. Hyuga. "Ma, I can't settle, he's goanna hate me and AAARRRGGGHHH," yelled Minato, stressing out, yanking at his hair, about everything, about the opinion of one little boy that had the yellow flash of Kohan laterally pulling out his hair under his hood. Jiraiya poked his head and then steeped in himself, but before he could say anything Kushina pushed herself up and slowly stood. She walked slowly over to Minato, who after seeing her stand rushed over to be near in case she fell. She grabbed his arm and tugged him to a door off to the side, not the one Jiraiya just used. Opening it showed to be a closet, which she shoved Minato into and glared at Jiraiya, who had pulled out his notebook and was writing. She closed the door behind her. "Kushina, what are yo?" "Kushina," yelled Minato. Sounds of something thumping against a wall was heard. Jiraiya leaned closer, ear twitching, pen flying across the pad of paper. A thump was heard with some rustling, frantic whispers from Minato to stop. "Wait, Kush, you, Minato." A few minutes passed and a few attempted to be quiet grunts and gasping breaths, and then Jiraiya was giggling. Think about what an awesome daughter-in-law he had. "Kushi, I'm goanna, you uage. Ooh," moaned Minato in relief. 2 minutes later, a few more sound of shuffling, and then Minato walked out carrying Kushina bridal style, with a deep blush on his face and his pants a bit disheveled. Kushina had a hold of his cloak while still wearing her own cloak with the hood down. She was smiling proudly. Minato was dressed as he normally was when he Junin uniform, with armband and his cage flame cloak under the other cloak. Kushina was dressed in a tight black and green dress. The green was formed like it was a corset with a skirt attached to it. Black long-sleeved shoulder cover and a high tight collar with a small V in it. She wore black tight pants under that and long black ninja sandals with slight heels, think older Sakura's shoes. Her hair was up in a high ponytail that was pushed up to look like a bubbled-out fan with a silver hair piece and pin holding it up. It was really fancy with red velvet lining under the silver and a large white circle that had light gold making it look like a swirl. That represented the Uzumaki clan crest and her crown as Queen of Uzushiogakure, one which she had never worn before but was told to wear for at least today's event by Lord Oda. The kids are here and Lord Oda has started the story about the Uzushiogakure. Just thought you should know, but if you're busy I can come back later. Jiraiya said, wiggling his eyebrows suggestively, making Minato blush more. Minato placed Kushina in her wheelchair and to his cloak quickly in order to hide from his father's teasing. Kushina also pulled her hood up with a satisfied smirk. Minato then went about fixing his disheveled clothes. I knew I liked you for a reason, Kushina-chan. You want a copy of my books, currently 3 out? Asked Jiraiya, only to have normal kuni, Kushina's, pin him to a wall and a large 3-pronged kuni to land just under his balls with a solid ringing sound. Looking up to see Minato's and Kushina's outstretched hands and evil white eyes coming out from under Kushina's cloak. Even think of having those books out around our baby or near him, then I will remove everything that makes you a man. Am I understood? Jiraiya nods rapidly. And another thing, if I ever find anything about Minato-kun and I in your books, then you are one dead woman. Kushina hissed. But I'm a man, said Jiraiya, confused, squeakily by the last statement. You won't be when I finally kill you. I won't allow you the dignity. She hissed again, white eyes gleaming with untold promises, and wisp of hair floated out from under her hood. Jiraiya paled and nodded slowly so as to not agitate the angry creature before him. Once she got his nod, she settled down and turned to Minato, who had gone and turned on the screen that was hooked to the camera inside the council room. Minato and Kushina, who just rolled her wheelchair over, listened to the daimyo, but their eyes were searching. There on the couch that was placed in the room just to the back of the open floor at the end of the council tables facing the daimyo, an empty Hokage chair, sat Naruto and the Sandaime Hokage, listening, though Naruto was twitching to move about, something they would have to work on with him. The teachers sat behind the clan heads against the wall, Iruka writing notes. Lord Oda was currently speaking about how Konoha was missing part of their vital history and started explain that the only reason the village was even built was due to the royal family of Uzushiogakure supporting the Senju family in their philosophies and later marriage to the, at the time, of the current king's second child and first daughter, Lady Uzumaki Mito. Then going on with how after helping the village get off the ground, and later Lady Mito sealing the 9 tails into herself in order to not only save the village but to protect the beast from anyone else using it to kill and destroy. This shocked many, even the clan heads, who were never told. A time jump to the start of the Second War, when it took 4 of the 5 great nations, Iwa, Kumo, Mizu, and Suna, before alliance, attacking Uzushiogakure in mass. It took 3 days of constant bombardment and massive loss of life before Uzushiogakare's walls fell, and then the really battle started. An army that stated with 89 million ninjas had fallen to 96,000 at the point of the fall falling, and by the end of the 3rd day of full combat, that number was cut in half, 48,000, and declining fast. Reinforcement were still coming from Kohan at this point, having only just received word the night of the 2nd day, and it would take another 3 days before they could arrive. At this point the daimyo looked sad, admitting he was only 6 when it had happened and was worried for a friend he had made there, before he went on with the story. By the time Konoha's reinforcements made it, the battle was over and Uzushiogakure had fallen, but not without making the ones responsible pay dearly. The army of 89 million ninja had fallen to a bit less than 18,000, a bit over 71 million killed by this one small village. Kushina noticed that never once did he mention the royal family's family name and smirked, so that was how he would surprise Nar-chan. A hand was raised. The child looked like his father and just as lazy. He asked the daimyo a few questions, starting with what kind of strategy was used to do such damage. It was first explained how Uzushiogakure was an island nation surrounded by whirlpools, then how the clan was famous for one of the hardest ninja skills to learn, fuinjutsu, and their kenjutsu, along with various other abilities spread amongst the 3 branches of the family. Lord Oda told them a bit about fuinjutsu from what he himself knew about the skill because of his friend. He let them know all about the infinite amount of uses for the trade but warned that it took non-clan members a long time to learn this skill since that clan had an uncanny natural talent with it. He held up an overly large-sized paper, poster size, that he had Kushina draft last night, and asked if anyone could tell him what this seal was or even had a guess. No one answered at first and the adults already knew this was directed at the children but even they didn't know what it was. It wasn't a normal seal that they commonly used, not storage or even basic barrier seal that they knew. Then when it seemed no one would answer, a voice spoke out. That's a trick question, right? I think. No, I see 3 to 4 things connected together in there, said a voice just below the high raised podium of the daimyo. The daimyo stands and looks down. It was Naruto and he had his head edged to the side cutely with eyes squinted. Oda smiled and left his seat with the seal in hand, walking to the front. Naruto, you idiot. Don't say such stupid things, trying to act all cool, yelled Kiba only to be silenced by his mother by her grabbing his ear and whispering something to him that made him pale. Sum apologized for the interruption and encouraged Naruto to continue. The daimyo stepped in when it seemed Naruto wasn't going to continue, having just gotten to stand in front of the podium. Oh, and why do you think that? He asked, kneeling in front of the boy with the seal within his reach. A few protested this but Oda silenced them with a wave of his hand. Naruto pointed to the first spot. At 6 o'clock, Oda was told about by Kushina. Barrier or guard. He moved his finger to a spot on the other side of the ring. 12 o'clock, blood. He moved further into the circle at between 1 and 2 o'clock. Attack with arrow pointing outwards, moving again to a spot innermost area, channel and storage, said Naruto, then looked up to Oda to see if he was right. That is correct for the pieces of the seal. This seal is known as an offensive barrier. If this barrier is attacked, then it attacks the person who hit it while the person inside the barrier channels chakra into the seal. As for the storage part of the channeling area, I do not know if that is there or why it is there. Lord Oda looked back to the door behind the podium, which opened with Jiraiya holding the door open. Slowly a wheelchair was pushed out with the person sitting in the wheelchair was covered fully by a tan cloak, face hidden by shadows of the hood and everything. The one behind pushing the chair also hidden in a similar manner. They came up to the two and stopped. He is correct with the storage part. It is so the one channeling chakra can give the seal an amount of chakra that the caster will be able to either ready another jutsu or attend to another in the shield. Good job, sweetie, came a female voice from the one in the wheelchair. Naruto looked stunned by the voice and edged his head to the side, eyes wide. Kushina had to fight with herself to not just reach out and grab the poor kid, but then saw his face and grew worried. Do I know you? You sound familiar, he asked softly and a touch confused. Kushina was surprised she hadn't talked to Naruto since the day she died. Though it said in books everywhere she read that babies learn their mother's voices while in the womb, maybe, but that was so long ago. Tears came down her face, not that any were able to see. Why don't we let Lord Oda here continue the story before I say anything, sweetie? Come, let us sit on the couch, she said, voice shaking. Naruto nodded and grabbed her hand, that was on the armrest, looking back at the other figure waiting for them to push the chair. This whole time the room was stunned, the students, because Naruto got something that was supposed to be the hardest skill to learn correct, or the interaction between him and the cloaked figure. The wheelchair was pushed to the large sofa made for three, with one part having a lounge seat. That is where the chair was pushed, and the cloaked female let go of Naruto's hand and pushed herself up after moving the foot supporters. Naruto stepped up to her side and moved to help, but was stopped by the person behind her. She steadied herself and fully stood up and slowly moved toward the couch, a bit wobbly but determined. Once there, she leaned down and gently turned to sit. Once seated, she scooted back to the backrest. Once settled into the seat, Naruto hesitated but then went around to the normal side of the seat and sat beside her. Hiruzen had gotten up as an Anbu came forward and opened a scroll, unsealing a single recliner seat for the elder Hokage, thus making room for the other cloaked figure. A few mutterings were heard while they took their seats, but quieted when the daimyo cleared his voice and asked if there were any more questions. There were again from Shikamaru. Yea, you keep saying Uzushiogakure and this royal clan, but never once did you say the clan's family name. What is it? Asked Shikamaru, eyeing the cloaked figures and Naruto, who did identify the seal correctly apparently. A skill the daimyo himself said the clan had. I will get to that further into the story now, if nothing else. A knock at the chamber's doors interrupting the daimyo, who glared at the door. Hiruzen got up and went to investigate, since the Anbu posted outside were told to not allow any disturbances, unless it was a major emergency. Hiruzen removed the seal on the door and cracked it open. While he was talking to the Anbu outside, the unknown cloaked figure got up and walked up behind Hiruzen. Naruto was on his knees looking over the back of the couch, wondering what was going on. After a few minutes, the cloaked figure spoke, directing his words at the daimyo. Clears throat. The civilian council are demanding entrance to this private meeting, Lord Oda. I do not mind. What do you say, my lord? A male voice came out from the cloaked figure. He waited and received a nod from the daimyo. He and Hiruzen opened the door and stepped aside to allow entrance to the chamber. In walked not only the civilian council but their children, since clan leaders had theirs, as well as the three elders, all with their heads held high and noses up. The civilian council and their children walked in and started taking their seats after bowing to the daimyo, who, though allowing them entrance, was not happy. Anbu, we need seats for our children and a setup similar like the clan ones over there, shouted one of the members at an ANBU that lined the wall. When none moved, and this angered the council member, who went over to the Anbu and got in their face. Are you deaf? I said, get us some chairs, now. He yelled. They will not listen to you since you are not the Hokage or approved authority to be giving Anbu ninja or any ninja orders, no matter how small, said the cloaked figure that had been by the door, with a bit of heat in his voice as he approached the man in Anbu. The council member glared at the figure. And who are you supposed to be? Remove your cloak at once, ordered the same guy, reaching out to rip this man's hood off his head, only to find several kuni near vital areas. The man froze and gulped. Wah, what's the meaning of this? He asked, trembling. You are to stand down, council member Hiro. Any further actions will be seen as treason and you will be executed on the spot. The Anbu hawk said in monotone voice, sending a chill down Hiro's spine. They weren't playing. Hiro retracted his hand and the Anbu were waved off by Hiruzen. The civilian council members were stunned. This has never happened before. They were losing power right before their eyes, and to the damn shinobi. Hiro glared. It had to be the demon's fault, since the report about the teacher they had paid to sabotage the demon, the less he learned the better in the civilian's opinion. Did someone spill? How close were they to finding out? No. We would have been arrested along with all the people that were getting swooped up, thought Hiro, looking around. Then he spotted it, the demon sitting on the couch by another cloaked figure. So, it is true, the demon has taken control. Hiro yelled, turning to the daimyo. Lord Oda, please, you must stop this demon. He is taking over the village. He has the Hokage attacking the civilians of the village, making people disappear into the night, and now making the Anbu attack as council members. Please, Lord Oda, order the Kyuubi's death like our Yondaime would have wanted long ago when he died, not seen as some hero like the third claims. Hiro brought all the attention to Naruto by pointing at him as he yelled at the daimyo with his request. The children were stunned. They knew the adults didn't like Naruto saying that he was trouble but ordering the death of a fellow child over pranks. The clan children looked to their parents as the civilian children actually backed away from Hiro. Naruto had at this point gotten off the couch and had his eyes lowered, hidden below his freshly cut bangs, hands clenched by his side as he chewed his lip. They're looking at me like that again, like I'm a wild animal, a murder. I can feel their hate and anger, but they have looked at me like that before I ever met them. Why, what did I do? Why am I a dem? Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by the female cloaked figure pulling him back onto the couch into a hug, turning his face into her chest, making him blush. This was the first time someone pulled him into their lap willingly that he could recall, and it was nice, though the hand on the back of his head making it stay between her soft was weird. Not knowing what else to do and unable to breath, Naruto pushed against her a bit, unintentionally using her as leverage, making the cloaked figure release him with a small squeak. After taking a few deep breaths, He laid his head back down and watched the happenings. Blood and lots of it were all over where Hiro just was, and the silence was overwhelming. Then all hell broke out. The civilians were screaming and grabbing their children, some even being sick at what had just happened. Hiro's head rolled at the male cloaked figure's feet. As to what was used, Naruto could not see. The cloaked female grabbed his attention and spoke softly about it to him, explaining, while he understood why he still didn't agree with the end results. Death wasn't something to do lightly in his opinion, it only caused more problems than resolved them. The clan heads just looked on, some speaking quietly to their children about the death and why it had happened. That there was a law broken and justice was carried out, that was what a shinobi's duty to execute is ordered. A few asked why the cloaked man did it and not an Anbu, but none of the adults knew why the cloaked figure did the act, not even the Hyuga or Nara could answer. There is a law that states that any who speak of the taboo, without permission of the current Hokage, you are to be executed. This hero has violated this decree and thus has been executed. I guess the history lesson will need to be shortened, Lord Oda, if I may take it from here. Asked the cloaked male figure, turning to the lord, who nodded and fanned himself as he returned to his seat, ordering for the mess to be cleaned up, which 3 Anbu did. The civilians had to be quieted down before anything else could happen though, and that took a bit longer. Only once a few silence seals were used was anything finally able to get done. Chairs were brought in and arranged differently than the clan ones due to the tables not being set up for the larger amount of people. The children sat behind their parents, many of them still shaking and crying, a few holding their stomach with bins near them. The cloaked figure turned to them. This is what being a shinobi is, killing when ordered, whether you like it or not. Taking missions to kill someone's mother, father, and even someone's child without question, whether it be someone in this village or outside this village. The man said, if you, the civilians who have children in the ninja academy and no longer wish them to participate, or the child themselves no longer wish to participate, answer now. He looked around first to the clan which had none, then to the civilians' side, most having stood and grabbed their child as if he would kill them for their answer. Anbu, detain these who wish to leave and they will be spoken to after this meeting, both parent and child. As the order was spoken by the cloaked figure, the parents and children quickly tried to run, only to be grabbed and sunshined out of the room in rapid succession by Anbu. Once everything settled down, only a few were left, mainly older civilian council members whose children were already grown and on their own, leaving 3 members. They looked shaken and were too afraid to protest or argue, and thus they stayed seated, stiff-backed and sweating. Now I know there are still questions, but hold them until the end since we have a lot more to do today. So then, I will shorten the story Lord Oda was telling you, but do not worry, the school curriculum will be updated for everyone to learn. Now Uzushiogakure had fallen in the story in the beginning of the Second War, and Lord Oda said he had a friend there, but what he didn't say was though the village fell, some managed to escape, one being the royal family's 8th child, a young girl. The cloaked figure walked back and sat on the couch as he spoke. Sitting close to the other cloaked figure, he picked Naruto's feet up on his lap and touched each of the toes in a soothing, ticklish gesture, making Naruto twitch but bit his lip to keep quiet. After a few months, around 7 or so, of spending her time and making arrangements with Lord Oda's father, she was called to Konoha to perform another duty, one that our very own Lady Mito had performed. She was to become the second Jinchuriki to the Kyuubi. She was brought down after finishing her business with the Fire Lord. After the officially merge Uzushiogakure with Hai no Kuni while remaining the princess of it, along with any heir she had and any other refugees that came from there if they ever showed, were to be protected. Said the cloaked figure, making several gasp and Naruto look at him with sadness. She met with Lady Mito, who was 132 years old at this point, and no longer able to continue holding the Kyuubi. Before you ask, the clan the girl and Lady Mito come from are known for longevity, and most live to be almost 200 years old, longest being 245 years old, the second king of the clan, Lord Kaio. She also wanted to finally rest and be with her beloved husband Hashirama-sama, the Shodai Hokage, after living for so long. Continued the male figure, looking around and noticing several clan heads looking at him oddly. Must have finally recognized my voice, but can't figure out exactly who I am because I'm dead. Mental chuckle, thought Minato, Best prank ever. The transfer was complete and Lady Mito passed. Then a few weeks later, once the young girl was finally ready, she joined our ninja academy here in Kohan. But like most newly joined clans or refugees, she was ostracized for being an outsider. On top of that, they found that picking on her hair color and calling her. He froze and looked at the female as Naruto crawled away from her into his lap trying to hide. Tomato, growled the female cloaked figure, key rolling, white evil eyes gleaming out, key rolling off her, making Naruto crawl behind the male cloaked figure and push him up in the seat to hide behind. Koi, he said, pointing at the scared Naruto behind him when she looked at him, making her feel bad about scaring the kid. She apologized and opened her arms for him to come back. Once Naruto got an approving nod from the man, he crawled to her as she hugged him and kissed his head, making him surprised. Naruto just sighed and blushed as he leaned back into her. Having never had this much attention, even with Jiraiya and Tsunade, he wanted to enjoy it while he could, no telling when he'd get it next. Clear's throat, yes, she was called that, and earned another nickname after she retaliated. Said the male figure, to which an Anbu said slowly, red hot blooded habanero. He